Welcome to EnergyHub TV.
So, this week we're going to be looking at an interesting topic, and of course something that has been exciting a whole lot of investors in the oil and gas industry, which is how to profitably run a marginal field venture. Dr. Amieyeofori is going to be here and is going to be giving us all you need to know and of course insider knowledge.
We are building Africa's largest energy network on EnergyHubNG.com. Discover marketplace, academics, virtual trainings, high-value energy researches and publication, as well as top-notch connections, services, and deals on EnergyHubNG.com. Sign up to get started today.
So, sir, looking at what is happening in the global oil and gas scene, there are a whole lot of discussions already and trend-setting situations taking place. How would you say these things affect the marginal field operations?
Okay, thank you so much. It's exciting because the marginal field, as we had said, is not a robust asset with reserves and all that. So it requires information, to be able to make it successful. Globally, the industry is challenged. As much as COVID-19, vaccination is going on, economies are opening, so demand is increasing, and then of course one area that the prices are also going up. Or there's a forecast of $100 barrel. So it's going to be good at this time, before the clamp is put on fossil fuel for early starters to be able to catch up with this trend. But then, of course, it's also a challenge in the sense that you have to be able to put your act together as quickly as possible to take advantage of what is happening. $100 oil price for a marginal field operator that is working with little reserve, borrowing all the money to start, would be a good thing for him, for her. But how quickly you can be on stream and how well you can manage this is what we want to discuss. But more importantly also, this will not be forever. Because as transition energy, renewable energy begins to take, greater, share of transportation and other, energy uses, then gradually oil and gas prices will relatively go down. The forecast, but that will be in the near future, not immediately. Not immediately. So in the immediate, the marginal field, especially for those who are already existing operators, they will catch up on the price. They will catch up on the price, and I hope that as the revenue comes in, they'll be able to clear bills and then also do quick investment to be able to move the assets forward. For now, it's looking okay. Nigeria itself as a country is seeking to increase our quota with OPEC, because we can't just be producing 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. Other oil producing, especially in the Middle East, they are really shoring up. They're investing, regardless of what people are saying. They're investing to increase their production, especially national oil companies. As the majors are divesting globally, majors are divesting. Majors are, reducing their footprints, and then of course that brings the national oil companies, that brings private companies, independents, to begin to go into. And so if a marginal field, take advantage of what is happening, like in Nigeria, the likes of platform, became seplat. There are opportunities of, as as Shell is doing the investment in Nigeria, a matured marginal field can team together and go into, acquiring some of the OMLs, but you cannot be there except you start. You cannot be there except you do very well. So my view is that this is the time for people to really watch the global scene and work towards taking advantage of every opportunity that is presented in the market.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that answer. And of course, I'm sure others will also be wondering, you are someone you're a figure who has been prominent in the marginal field operation yourself. You are experienced in it. You've even run some profitably and successfully. So I know the meat of the matter now, and even the heart of the matter is people want to even know, what are your recommendations for those who want to run their marginal field operation successfully, not just successfully, profitably too? What are your recommendations?
No, it's okay. I think right now we have, I would say we have two groups. The 2003 groups, they already have gone through their school, but there's nothing wrong in sharing experiences.
Yes.
But more importantly, for the new ones in the 2020, 2021, as we said in our last discourse, it's not just owning the asset. There is no money. Money into Nigeria comes with a premium. And so, and also the challenge is not only the money, but the investors also want stake. They want to take, very sizable equity in the asset. So the Nigerian marginal field owner operator is probably left with the shorter end of the stick.
Yeah.
So that will require a lot of ingenuity on his part. First of all, to be able to operate, to pay back that money, and then begin to start, growing the assets.
Yes.
Because you have to pay back the money before you can grow the assets, or you have to be able to build confidence in the partnership that their money is not going to be with you for years. You must demonstrate capacity to pay back, and that is where the whole thing is. And the marginal field environment is in the midst of a lot of challenges. Right now, one thing that is really going to be a major is how to secure funding.
Okay. Secure funding.
How to secure funding for field development to get to first oil, and then how to grow beyond first oil. First oil probably 2,000, 3,000 barrels, but some of these assets can do 10,000 barrels. How to put the documents together, how to put your house, your board, everybody together to be able to get that money or that partner into the investment. And then how to ensure that you have the right contractual environment. The right contractual environment is important, because if you are not careful and you want to go for the cheaper ones, it's going to be like more days, more dollar. If a project is, maybe a service contractor wants to charge $10, another one wants to charge $30. I mean, natural wisdom will say, why didn't you go for $30? But my recommendation is that the marginal field, especially for the new guys, they have to really go to town with due diligence, making sure that the service companies that are coming on board, you really know their history. When they mobilize, do they demobilize on time? When they sign a contract for $10, do they end up with $100 by the time they finish? When they come on a life well, do they junk it before they go? Their experience for the factor. Because it's not just as a friend, it's not just as a family, because now the money doesn't belong to you, and you even hold the shorter end of the stick. So my recommendation is that they must carry out evaluation, pre-qualify the service companies. Don't just say because I know them. Visit their yards, see how the equipment are, the certification they have. Some of them may be expired. just making sure that the right person comes on board, and that it also leaves at the right time and give you the value for what you're paying for. If you go for groups that or company that will end up creating more problem, the marginal field now may not require that. You don't have the luxury of repeating mistakes. You don't have the luxury of solving too many problems at the same time. The other one is also, before even all that, I mean, most of them will have rig operations. Marginal fields may not necessarily be able to contract a rig company by themselves, because mobilizing a rig, getting a rig just for one well is so expensive. You are going to pay the whole mobilization on that one well, the whole demobilization on that one well. So you need to begin to shop for rig windows with other companies, so that you just take for your one well, you share. And that is why we always say about pulling resources together. Clusterizing the operation. Even though you are not next door neighbors, you need to look at, in terms of rig, you need to look for a window to share the mobilization, demobilization, to share it, so that your one well, is optimized in terms of cost. And you can also honestly, collaborate with service companies. It's not all, there are very tested, proven service companies in Nigeria who are even doing a service for oil. You can also collaborate with them that, listen, I do not have the money, or I do not have all the money. So can you put yourself together, work with one major company, bring other companies together in a consortium, so that they can provide some of the service chains for you, and then get paid with revenue from the crude that would generate. That would cut down on your bank charges, cut down on so many charges. But before you do that, like I said, not because they are your friends or because they are your family, but because you have done a background check. And if the company do not have that internal capacity, Nigeria is a matured oil and gas, you can consult people to say, look guys, can you put service company for me? Can you pre-qualify them for me? Can you put them together for me, so that I know the group I can work with? There are a lot of expertise in the industry now. We can select service companies, we can go to town with them, get case histories, put it together, clean it up, and say, okay, you know what, work with this consortium, these are terms and conditions. So you can actually do that. But more importantly also, it's not only just engaging service companies. The well design, a lot of people do not have enough patience. So my recommendation is that, yeah, it's okay you want to employ people, but for a first oil, engage experts to look at your well, understand the well. Don't just hurry up to mobilize. You might not come out. A lot of people have made that mistake. Just that one first oil. No, you can't come out. So make sure you understand the subsurface. You understand the well bore. You understand the jewels, the casing, the casing accessories. Some of these wells have been there for age, so they'll require integrity test. Some you are lucky, you still have visibility, but make sure you understand what did the IOC leave, what is in the well, what are the challenges. Study it, get people to put it together before you re-enter the well, before you go into the well, so that you don't do, I've seen people doing experimentation. We thought is this. Don't think, because there is no money. Don't think I thought. No, tear it apart. Make sure when you go, your chance of success is very high. So take your time. So by the time you get there, you are 80-90% sure that you're going to come out with your expectation. Another thing also is evacuation. You know, you must, for me, you must sort out your evacuation, because cash flow is king. Cash flow is premium. In fact, your lenders, your partners will want to see cash flow as quickly as possible. I was going to come there too. Yes. It's as quickly as possible. So sort out, where do I evacuate? What are the challenges? Fortunately, you know, we now have pipelines, we have trucking, we have barge. So these three are being used. Do I need to truck before I barge? Do I need to truck and export? You know, is there a place where if I truck and I put it and I take it to, you know, an FSO through a barge? FSO is floating storage. You know, it's a mini terminal in the sea. You know, floating storage. You know, for oil, where you can easily go, and then of course a ship will come and then a tanker can come and then load it instead of a terminal. You understand what that is? So Nigerians are already aware of all those evacuation. But my advice is that don't try to be a hero by saying, okay, I need to bring my own FSO. It's not worth it for a marginal field with 2,000 barrels, especially in this scenario. So you need to shop around where is the nearest evacuation point. One thing also, if you're going to use a pipeline, most of the pipelines have losses. You know, crude theft, crude losses. And I was talking to somebody, one of the routes, he said it's almost 40-50% losses. So if you produce 2,000 barrels, you get 1,000. So you want to say, is that what I want to do? As a marginal field, can I lose even 20%? What is the cost of that 20% I'm going to lose? Why don't I use it to barge? What is the cost of barging? Instead of losing 20%, why don't I translate it into barging so that I can put extra cost on barging and have a 30-day, 25-day production, more production and consistent volume. So that because the truth is this, that to be successful, you need to put your hand in all of this. It's not an ivory tower business. You need to fold your sleeves and remove your tie, because otherwise we are not going to get out of it. One other area that is also very critical is managing the internal dynamics. Who are the partners? Who are the shareholders? Who are the board of directors? Do they have the same vision of becoming oil and gas people? Or they are just you know, tangential investors, people who are just coming and say I want to be, and just scratch the surface, and all that they are asking for is money. No, that has to be also sorted out, because the season we are, you cannot afford to have shareholders whose principal motive is just whatever money you make, give it to them, but you have a huge debt. One area that is also very critical, especially now that PIA have split upstream and downstream, they are going to arrest you for not paying royalty. They are going to deal with you. And not very many people are, you know, flexible in paying government rents, royalty. So when you have royalty to pay, when you have this to pay, when you have that to pay, when you have this to pay, especially in this, you know, PIA world,
yes,
where somebody is not distracted with downstream, somebody is not distracted with midstream, his entire focus is upstream, he's going to come after you.
Okay.
And so this is also the time to ensure that the internal dynamics of the marginal fuel companies are well sorted out, so that you are paying your royalty as a when you come into production. You are paying your banks, you are paying your lenders, you are paying the service company that work for you. You might not pay them 100%, but you are paying. I mean, nobody runs on cash in the industry, but you are not a bad debtor. Just like credit professionals will say, you are not a bad debtor. You are not an operator that everybody now put a stigma on you. That guy doesn't pay, that company doesn't pay. You have to be disciplined enough to be paying to be successful. Otherwise, what will happen is this: when service companies want to work for you, they'll ask for 100%. They'll ask for cash. They will ask you to pay the money. And so you cannot run the operation on cash. You cannot run the operation by paying 100%. And the danger of paying 100% in advance is that you are not guaranteed. Once that money is exhausted, the guy demobilizes or he waits for you. You have to raise supplementary contract, supplementary POs, and you have to still pay. So you are always, every time, holding the short end of the stick. But if you're a good, you don't have to pay 100%. I mean, credit, the world runs on credit. But there are good credits and there are bad credits. And that is just what the marginal field needs to understand. You don't have to get away with more than. So this is the problem with the environment. And of course, the issue of...
I was going to ask you about...
Are you having well-positioning and productivity issues? Then register for this course is brought to you by AOGS Energy Resources Limited. The first course, Well Diagnostic course, is taking place 21st October 2021, a virtual class. Learn the secrets to healthy wells and well performance today. And taking place on the 19th to the 20th of November, it's a directional drilling class where you master well-engineered directional drilling practices. You can book each course for 50,000 Naira or save 20% when you register for both master classes. Learn well diagnostics from the masters and the very best of directional drilling from drilling experts today.
You know, you mentioned you've been highlighting some cost saving and even some financial intelligence that cuts into these operations. I understand that funding has been a major challenge in the operation so far, and even before the energy transition. What do you recommend to people who really need finance for their marginal fields? Excellent,
that is very good. All of this maybe is going to dovetail. Sometimes marginal fields don't make use of very experienced financial people. The company wants to run. They don't look at their books. I mean, you need to look at your books. You need to have people who know the books, who can interpret the books, and who can advise you. Sometimes, chairman, CEO runs everything, all the books on the table of the chairman, CEO. It just can't work. Because right now, it might not come so quickly, but eventually it will come. There is now, requirement for sustainable, development goals in raising funds for fossil fuel, especially for, oil and gas, which means that environmental compliance, not only for EIA, but that this is for funding. Banks are going to really consult a lot of oil and gas and environment and SDG people. You understand? Because because the truth is this, that now to raise funds, especially international funds, they are going to look at compliance. So you need experts who understand the financial world, who can manage the financial dynamics. It's not one man show anymore. You can't do it. Because for you to raise capital for oil and gas is going to be very challenging. You will be under pressure to comply, not with your local regulations, not with your local, but the international framework on financing, fossil fuel now. So you need experts. And most of these foreign banks, especially Europe and the US, they are the ones really putting the clamp on financing. Okay, Asian banks are still funding, but then even then you need to really begin to worry about the source of funds and how to get the fund into besides Nigeria having its own challenges, country risk, political risk, security risk, economic risk, a few risks here and there. You company must now also de-risk your own, operation.
Yeah.
You have to de-risk your own operation. You have to be able to demonstrate capacity that you understand the present day financial risk management that has, is beclouding the fossil fuel industry. So, in my previous, I spoke about different funding. You can actually collaborate with service companies to fund. And of course, there is private equity, but the private equity is no longer the private equity. They all want to take a major stake in the industry and in the asset. And of course, off-takers, you have off-takers, who want to say, okay, I can take the crude, but I need to put some money. And you also need to be knowledgeable enough to sign into such off-takers agreement that, okay, I'll take the crude, but okay, let me fund this so that every crude you produce, I'm going to take it. So that is why you need financial experts now. We are going to look at the basket, the basket of options that are available, and which are not necessarily available, but the one that is cost optimized, because you don't want to get a fund at 30% dollar rate. You must have capacity to negotiate the fund, and also capacity to return the fund.
Very important,
because that is so it's no longer a chairman CEO transaction. You have to have a retinue of experts, both in the operations, in geology, in community, in environment, people that the people would believe that if I put my money into this asset, they'll be able to manage it and return profit to me, and also return my principal to me. So financing is Nigerian banks are right now. Shell is divesting. A lot of other modular refineries is looking for funds. Other infrastructure projects are looking for funds. So funding is not really on the table. So to secure funding means you really must do your homework properly. And if any Nigerian bank is going to raise 20, 30, 40 million dollars for you now, they'll probably take your liver and your heart, because they won't trust, because they've been hit before. They've been blown, their bridges have been blown by previous investors, previous asset holders. So it's no longer business as usual, and that is why you have to be prudent. And that is also why we say you don't have to make too many mistakes. This is the time to do a lot of expert review, expert analysis on your operations. That's also, we also mentioned, you don't need to look for the cheaper service company who comes with $10. By the time he finishes, you have a $500 bill, and still the well is not producing optimally. So there's a lot of things you need to put together, and more importantly also collaboration. You understand? You cannot fund, like I said, you cannot fund your FSO yourself. You cannot fund everything yourself. So you need to look at sharing facilities, pulling together, looking for, like I mentioned, you cannot mobilize a rig for one well. It's going to take everything out of you. But the rig contractor is not going to sympathize with you. He's going to mobilize and demobilize only on one well. Every of that cost is on that well. You can't make it. So you have to look for window shopping, looking for other operators who have rig, and signing on an opportunist window to be able to mobilize to get your well done, and make sure that the rig is released as at when, because other people will be shining on the same rig. So you cannot afford to come on your well for 45 days, you're spending 200, then nobody's going to take it. And they'll tell you, please, can you shut your well and give us the rig? So that is why there has to be technical expertise, financial expertise, operational expertise, and more importantly, management and governance expertise. Otherwise, you are going to fail. You are failing from the beginning if you want to run it like a family business. Unless your family is everybody, and I'm not sure. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for that. I think your previous answer even raised some key points. You mentioned something about de-risking, and also that these operators do not try to solve too many problems. And I think this foreshadows the Niger Delta, of course, and some of the concerns we have there, because most of the operations will happen there. The place has been known for quite some unrest and militancy. And I don't know if you follow our first episode, we discussed host communities and some of the things we addressed in the PIA, that is the Petroleum Industry Act. The Petroleum Industry Act made some new definitions for host communities and provisions for them. How do you think, what recommendations will you give operators, that is marginal field operators in this field, if they're trying to operate in the Niger Delta? What recommendations do you give them?
Yeah, I think it starts with the implementation of the PIA. Fortunately, the president has set up an implementation committee. But like I said, and I've always said, if we can separate politics from it and ensure that, because you now want to say will the implementation committee work outside of the politics to ensure that the PIA protocols are enshrined? You understand? So while you would want to see what will they do, my recommendation is that what the provision is there. Personally, I mean, our experiences paid out. A trust fund, trust board. I always don't subscribe to benefactor beneficiary model, as if you're doing the community a favor. It's always backfiring. Get them integrated. Of recent, I was reading, at the shutting down of one of the IOCs. You understand? Because, budget constraint, the people are demanding, not even NDDC also had that. One of the IOCs also had, there's a demand, not being able to meet. You understand? So you don't downplay the people, you don't downplay the environment, because also be aware that we're in a digital world. Somebody in far away host community, as long as he has internet and he has lights, you understand, he will log on and he will see what is happening in Venezuela, he will see what is happening in Iran, he will see what is happening in Saudi, he will see what is happening in Angola and Algeria. He doesn't have to be in Abuja to do that. And everything that is posted is reading what is happening in the north, is reading what is happening in the west. So the internet, the digital community has brought more education. So people are more aware of their rights, and not only of their rights, of the wrong thing as well. Because there are so many wrong things on the internet, taking laws into their hands, which ordinarily he will not have known. But now he sees people doing it and getting away with it. So why can't he try it? So that is what the operators need to understand, that it's no longer I'm talking to the villagers. There are no more villagers. Everybody is within the internet community. So there is no village, except for the very remote. Okay, we still have a few of the isolated, globally, but then everybody now belongs to the same internet city. So there is no villager in my own perspective of definition, because we are all in the same community now, internet community, digital community. So the fact that you are in New York doesn't mean that I am disadvantaged. The only time I'm disadvantaged is when somebody cut off my light and cut off my network. Otherwise, I can wake up at the right time and watch what is going on in New York. I can get first class news in New York even before you wake up here on the bed, because if I really want to. So the oil companies, especially the marginal field, they should be aware that they are now dealing with people of the same intellectual opportunity, people of the same information community, people that can have access to all information at the push of the button. So what are you going to tell them that they don't know? And so my approach will be, make them partners. Don't insult their sensibility. Don't make it look as if the oil is in the pipeline. The oil is no longer in the pipeline. You understand? The oil is no longer in the pipeline. Let them be aware. And my experience is that if you treat them with respect, they will treat you with respect. If you make them feel respected, honorable, they will treat you as such. If you don't make them look as if they are begging, clapping hands, you understand. But if you make them beg, and now that they are reading, they won't beg, they will force it out of you. You understand, they'll force it out of you. Where, somebody protested, and he's shutting down the company because come and pay protest allowance. It doesn't make sense. Why do you want to pay protest allowance? Why don't you even avoid the protest? Why don't you have a dialogue? Why don't you be sincere in your chatting? Look, guys, I don't have this money. When you have the money, they will know you have the money. When you don't have the money, when the well is not producing, they are aware you are not producing. When you're producing and selling, they are aware, and also be right sure. People, I don't know, people live on Facebook, on Instagram. So it's easy to check the chairman's Facebook and Instagram.
Yes.
And he just bought a 50 million SUV, and you tell me I should believe you.
Tell you.
Listen, there is no villager. In my definition of, I don't, honestly, my perspective of life is this. We're all living in the same internet city. You understand? So I just need to Google your name and go to your Instagram page. I just need to Google your name and go to your Facebook page. And many people that like to show their family, I see your family and everybody's dancing. Meanwhile, I don't have lights. So those are the challenges people need to have. So there is no need for us to, be afraid of. All we need to do is to bring the people on the table. But now you are discussing with equals. You are discussing with people who are even have, if you are not careful, they have more information than you have. And so by the time you say 10 things, they put 50-page document of their own research. So my recommendation is that make them stakeholders. Bring them on board. Get them to have value. Get them to have honor. Encourage them to set up institutions. Encourage them to set up organizations. Encourage them to be organized. Encourage them to train themselves. Encourage them to see the future. Encourage them to believe that if it is good for you, it is good for them. And demonstrate when it is good for you. You understand? So that they'll also see that it's overflowing rather than for them to punch the pipe. But of course, you still have the criminal elements. But I believe that if the companies begin to look at it in that perspective, you will have more people on your side who will also support you to fight the criminals from the same community. I believe it's possible.
Very possible. Thank you very much, sir, for having us around this time around, where we discuss how to profitably run a marginal field venture with Dr. Amieyeofori Felix. And ladies and gentlemen, if you missed out our previous episode where we discussed everything you need to know about the marginal field operation in Nigeria, please you are going to see that episode, watch, subscribe. EnergyHubNG.com remains your one-stop venue for all you need to know digitally. Access all you need to know about energy, deals, products. We have everything outlined for you. Thank you very much.
Up next, how will energy transition affect all dependent economies?